Deplorables, that's right. Couldn't read what I wrote.
There we go. See, we're live and we're discussing it. This is just a fly by the seat of our pants. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Accuracy in America. I am Don Irvine and joined by Brian McNichol.
Good morning, and thanks to Don, I have this list in front of me. Good morning, my friends, the deplorables, drags, despicables, chumps, and of course, the dog-faced pony soldiers.
Oh, you left out the Neanderthals.
The Neanderthals. and you know, a large segment of our base is Neanderthals.
That's right.
We cannot be neglecting those people. These are literally our people.
We are anti-Neanderthal or something. I don't know, what is that? We have discriminated. We're gonna have to teach critical race theory about Neanderthals.
That's right.
All right, look at this. I mean, June 30th, the year is half over. Where the heck has the year gone? I mean, has it moved faster now that we're kind of out of the pandemic, or mostly out of the pandemic, you think?
Yeah, you know, I think that's part of it. I think that it's like, you know, this was a busier spring for me than like 2 springs ago. You know, not much, you know, my life was pretty much the same, but it seemed like everything was a little bit faster paced because, you know, we were making up for lost time. But yeah, it's gone by. You know, I'm in a, you know, as far as like who's running the country now and all that, I'm for a how fast can we get this time to pass, right? To try to get it over with before something bad happens, because you know these guys are dangerously irresponsible.
Yeah, well, we got 5 months of the administration are behind us now, right? So
yeah, we have 43 to go.
We're getting there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is just that, you know, as you said, you know, 2 years ago, I mean, our lives were, you know, are generally fairly well ordered for people, right? They kind of used to have a routine. 2020 took everything off track. Everything stopped. So now that things have been gearing back up, there's like a pent-up demand. People are trying to now do a lot in a short period of time. You know, we have summer's not really all that long, so people who may have missed out on things earlier in the spring before mandates were really mass mandates were, you know, they're basically making it for last time. So just a lot of stuff kind of being crammed into a short period of time, it seems now, on top of everything else.
And if you have school kids,
my son getting married.
Oh, that's right. You have that coming up. I saw your pictures. The in-laws were in town. Is that right?
Yeah, the in-laws were in town. Yeah, no pressure at all.
And but the thing about it is that, you know, the school kids, those summers are compressing, right? It's like you know, we got out the 12th of June, and you know we're going to have to go back well into August. So it's down to about 7 or 8 weeks, and I think, you know, a lot is lost there. I know that, you know, the teachers unions say, oh, there's, you know, they fall behind in their studies and we have to spend the first 3 weeks catching them up and so forth. You know, I've never really believed that. I don't think you could prove that with testing. You know, there's probably a week or so that gets get memories jogged and so forth. But, you know, if you look at what happens in school and how they progress and so forth, you know, the other side of that, I don't know about, you know, Maryland as much as Virginia on this, but Virginia, they give the SOL, Standards of Learning Test, which is our state assessment, in late May or early June. And then the rest of the school year is you're basically watching movies and, you know. So the 3 weeks of, you know, learning that they have to catch up with and whatnot, what are they catching up on? Because you taught to the test, right? That's what they told us. Hey, we had to teach to the test because, you know, SOLs and this and that. So then they took the test. So none of that can be included in the stuff they forgot right over the summer. So it's only the stuff after the SOLs. So are you saying that it's important that they forgot which movie you showed them for an hour so you didn't have to teach any class the last 2 weeks of school? I mean, because to me, the movie plot of whatever you showed is not really relevant to my kids' education. I just hope it's not, you know, porno or, you know, transsexual, whatever, you know, perversion 101, you know, because, you know, that's what a lot of these things are these days. You know, the fact of the business is, I'm not sure what it is they're forgetting. I also think that you could win an election, and I've sort of whispered this to some Youngkin people. I don't think they're going to take me up on it. Is, say, hey, we could save a lot of money and not lose lose little or nothing at all in terms of academic progress by saying, it's not 190 days anymore. It's going back to 180 days, because that is the right size school year. No, the school year should not include both Memorial Day and Labor Day. You need to choose one of those that's going to be part of the summer. It could be the very beginning or the very end, but one of those should be in the summer.
You're right about the movie thing too. Is that, when we were younger, it was, we kind of know what's going on there, but I think, the way teaching and education has gone is that all bets are off. We really don't know what the heck's going on there anymore. And
right.
we can see about just all these things, going on around, around cities and towns across the country about, how they're getting all upset. The conservatives will lobby on the critical race theory that, they fight back. They've seen some things and they said enough is enough. We've lived with a lot of stuff, but you've now gone just a bridge too far for us with this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And you're starting to get some pushback, and you're going to see, I bet some Republicans win seats on the Loudoun County School Board next time, right? I think that we've seen the damage done by putting Democrats in charge of schools. It does not work. Because they think the schools are there for the employees, and they're not. They're for the students.
Yeah, in some of the areas that have been more liberal lately, this pushback has really been good for conservatives. Liberals obviously hate it. The media obviously hates what's happening out there. But hey, we're trying to protect these kids from being basically that, feel guilty about being born white.
Yeah. Right. That's nonsense, and doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
Right. You are not going to make us all get along and accept each other by telling us that things are our fault that happened 150 years before we were born. It's not going to work.
Right. Exactly. So we're coming right up on a July 4th weekend. It's good. It's great to have July 4th back. Not every location here in the area, in my neck of the woods, is going to do July 4th parades or fireworks, or maybe some parades, but maybe just not the fireworks. I think Poolesville is going to do. I think they're going to do fireworks. But so it's coming back, and it's good. Now I want to say something I think is kind of funny. So we have a friend of ours that works for the National Park Service. And in the past, 2019 and prior to that, she would send out a little message to some of us and say, hey, look, there's a friends and family thing for National Park Service employees. If you let me know that you want to go down to the mall and you want to drive your car, we can put you in a special area, basically special parking privileges. Because, parking, the mall is a nightmare in terms of, it's just a huge amount of people, 500,000 people or whatever it is go down there. They clog the metro, they clog the roads and everything like this. So I know some people have taken advantage of this. So I inquired about that this year for some other friends of mine, and she came back and she says, well, we have a new supervisor who believes that is an ethics violation. So they've done away with it. And I'm just like, wait a minute, there's somebody in the government that actually is worried about ethics.
Yeah, and it's but look at what ethics they're concerned about. Where you park for the 4th of July.
Right.
The guys running Capitol Police, and walking off the scene and letting people go into the Capitol so you could then charge them with being in the Capitol. That ethics is not ever looked at, right? But it's you parked in a parking place,
Yeah, I don't know. I know she's shaking her head at this whole thing because it just seems kind of ridiculous. She's a real diehard conservative, and she's got her career there, but privately she just kind of goes, blows off some steam, and it's really fun to watch. But it's interesting to see the inside of a government agency like that from someone who says, here's what it is. The Park Service, we don't pay a lot of attention to the Park Service per se, but they have this nice little perk, which doesn't hurt anybody.
And it's not like we could go park there, right? It's like my dad, when my mom died, they had a handy. My mom was in a wheelchair the last 4 or 5 years of her life, And it was a couple of years after that before my dad's handicap driver's license plate ran out, right? And he did not rush down there and take it off, right? And so my dad was scrupulously ethical person. So we asked him about it, right? Because it seemed to be, it seemed to not be that, And what he said was, you cannot park in a handicap place, right? If you go park there, it's illegal no matter what. But I can, which means there's one closer to the building for you, because I took the one, and they're always empty, right? There's always there's 7 of them and there's one car in there and there's 6 empty spaces right by the door, right?
Right.
So he's saying, I took a space you can't take so that there's a closer space you can take, like, okay, but that's,
Okay. I love that justification. That's great. I mean, look, that's the same thing. So my mom, had a waiver. So we had a placard in Maryland. And they expire. Right. I think they expire they're good for a 2-year period or whatever, and then the doctor has to renew that. So after my mom passed, that was a little bit of that ethical dilemma for for my wife and myself. It's like, well, we still have it.
Yeah, it's just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, do we park and fake a limp?
Right. Yeah, that was the other thing is but my dad gets out of that car and boldly strides into wherever he's going, right? So what does that look? But there it is. Better or worse.
Yeah, no, look, I'll say this is that whether with a handicap license plate or placard or whatever, people who park there, I don't really look askance at people like I used to, having had that and understanding that you don't have to be the individual. You can be the driver of the individual. And you
right. That's the point I was going to make is you say what you want about him, but for 5 years, he had a wife with cancer who required his full attention every day. Right. And so that's not really a fun 5 years. It wasn't fun at the end of that. And, right. And this was the first years of his retirement. He entered retirement caring for a cancer victim. So, he worked real hard, and, those people who are caring for these people, it is a daily encumbrance, a huge daily thing in their lives. And so if they park a little closer, that's not the kind of thing I'm personally going to get worried about.
Yeah, no, it matters, and if somebody is running an errand for a handicapped person and they park there because it just makes it a little bit easier to run their errand, I'm not going to begrudge it anymore. And, right. And your dad's justification, there is some merit in it, is because there are usually, 5 times as many spaces that are ever occupied. So yeah, if you're going to park in that space and free up another space that's maybe closer for an able-bodied person, yeah, very few times have we ever seen all the handicap spaces in a parking lot anywhere ever occupied.
Right.
So be it. I don't know how we got down there. That's kind of funny. All right, moving on to tragic news, but something that
So why is that? Why are there so many more handicap spaces than are needed, right? And a lot of what was done in the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act compliance, is overdone. We did things that cost too much money. We set aside too many parking spaces. We made too many accommodations, right? I think even most handicapped people would agree to that, right? It's not that we were denying. It's we went out and tried to do a good job, and we, to some extent, overdid it, right? So, who set up those guidelines, right? The same people that are telling you whether to wear masks and how bad the Delta variant is and all that stuff, right? It's government regulators, okay? And you have to remember that they're working from a limited set of facts, but the idea that we trust in all the things they say and we enshrine them for life doesn't make sense, right? Because I don't know what we do about this, but we're far enough into the ADA now to where you used to be able to look around and say, okay, we don't need that many parking places. We don't need, you have golf courses out there with 6 handicap parking places. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense, right? And a lot of times you're telling businesses to give away their best 5 or 6 parking places, right? In exchange for what? Because they're never filled. So it's like the thing you're seeing now, the modern sort of embodiment of this is, drive up and get them to bring the food out to your car has become very popular, right? The last 2 or 3, 4 years, really, accelerated by the pandemic, right? A lot of people they just go and get the food and bring it home and eat it, right, out of the restaurant. So, you go to these restaurants now and there's 15 spaces for drive up and pick up your food. They're not ever filled either. Now, because it's a private restaurant, right, they'll be able to correct. They'll be able to say, okay, we don't need 15, we need 3. 3's not quite enough, we'll make it 4. Okay. But it being government, it being enshrined in law, we can't change. So it's going to be a huge thing. And it's how do you go argue, in the public sphere to say, hey, we need less accommodation for handicapped people? How far is that one going to go? Right? Not very far, because, you can't mistreat those people. Well, we're not mistreating them. We're taking away parking places they're not using. There I say.
Yeah. No, I
have a lot of friends now in that community.
Yeah, you may have just lost a bunch of people. Who knows? All right. So moving on, Miami condo collapse. So this happened after we did probably a couple of days after we did our last show or thereabouts. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so this has been a big focus of the media and everybody else. Tragic event, startling event to see a condo collapse. I mean, to me, I looked at it and I thought, boy, it looks like something had bombed it out. I didn't expect to see anything like this. But it's tragic that they've only confirmed 12 dead, but there are 149 missing as far as they can tell. We're almost a week into this process. The clock is ticking rapidly on the chances of finding anybody alive in this, and this is really, really a shame here. But I don't know. I mean, who they're eventually going to point the fault to in this. There's a lot of fingers being pointed in a lot of directions, it seems.
Yeah, it's interesting. The eagerness to find a boogeyman in this, right? There's a few of them out there. Some people say that this has to do with terrorism. If you watch the building break away, it looks like others that had to do with terrorism. I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence beyond speculation from how the split. People looking at the video and making up their minds. There's a lot of real estate, especially in Florida, built on barrier islands. There's a lot of real estate, North Carolina, Outer Banks those are barrier islands, right? There's a lot of very valuable real estate on those. That's sort of a deal with the devil, right? They're meant to move. They're meant to respond to the conditions of the coast, right? They're not, you're not guaranteed. You're guaranteed non-stability there, right? Instability, constant change. You're guaranteed it will not be a stable place to build a building. But they're out there and they're in a prime, you have ocean on one side, bay on the other, that's prime real estate, right? So it's hard to tell people don't build there, but we have, US has a lot of real estate. Someone told me more than $100 trillion worth of real estate built on barrier islands and other places where it's you're sort of at the whims of nature, at the mercy of nature. So that's part of that. Obviously, a building built in 81 or something shouldn't be falling down. 40 years. 40 years, all the skyscrapers are coming down. This is a very small part of the problems we're about to have. So, it'll be interesting to see.
Right. I mean, just right. Yeah. And as you said, I mean, the thing is that when you're built in an area like that, a building, is that, the forces of nature, the salt air and all these, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of corrosive material things. So if you don't have a regular maintenance program and are not shoring up the buildings and doing things will happen. I mean, look, there are tons of people who live, in the West, they live in the mountains, people live in areas that were not really generally meant to have housing initially. Yeah. And you're going to take a risk. I mean, if a fire comes sweeping by and burns up your house, you knew that was going to be a risk, that there was to be a wildfire, something like that. If there's heavy rains and your home slides down in a mountain, yes, that was a risk. There are risks to living in areas that were not generally, expected for things to be built. Technology, construction, all these kinds of things allows us to build in places that we haven't, we weren't building in 100 years ago, but there are risks, and you have to understand those risks.
Right. It's the same thing as the droughts in the
asking
desert.
My wife. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You go out there. I mean, those are things. I mean, Spencer was complaining yesterday about how much he wasn't sure how much longer he could deal with the heat in Phoenix, and I said, well, I mean, you move there. Okay. It's like,
right.
I mean, it's not like it's a big secret. It's like anybody else who moves out there, right, to Arizona, to Nevada. If you complain, I mean, that's part of the bargain. I mean, you go out there and it's like, okay, it is hot. But I think part of the thing with him and some other people is that it's underestimation of how hot it really is. I mean, yes, it's dry. 17 degrees and still dry. It's still hot. I mean,
it's hot. Yeah, Phoenix is hot. You go through there at night and it's 100 degrees at night. 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's hot. You can't get away from that. That's like the one you had. I think it was you that had on Facebook about people moved next door to the Montgomery County airport, and then they complained about the noise of the planes. It's like the airport was there before you moved in. You didn't look that up,
Right. No, and that's the thing. So, the bigger part of that story though about that air park thing, which I live right by. I mean, I hear the planes, coming in and going, and I knew that was there. I consider it kind of white noise and just ignore it. There are people that are closer by, but no one has really complained about this in terms of the fact that when they revealed that the complaints came from 97% of them came families, only 35 unique families had filed 2,855 complaints. This is like nothing compared to how many people live around here. There's just a bunch of people who gathered together to complain, to try to make a lot of noise. But once again, like you said, that airport has been there before most of the housing was there. They knew that was coming. We had the same thing where I used to live on the other part of Silver Spring, which was the ICC. The ICC, the Intercounty Connector, had been on the books since the 1950s. Just because it had not progressed, for 50 years or close to 50 years, doesn't mean that it was never going to happen. Right. Bob Orlick gets elected governor, and the next thing you know, he pushes forward the ICC, which has been a great blessing to the people who live in Montgomery County, to bifurcate, going from upper Montgomery County to crossing over to 495. But
with none of the horrors that we were promised, right?
Right.
We were told it would be, gridlock and development all the way around, and it'd mess up the whole character of that neighborhood. And none of that. I don't know how the road's been open, 10 years now? Something like that. The ICC all the way through. And you haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, Ehrlich was governor from 2002 to 2006, so it's been at least 15 years, probably. Yeah. Maybe 2000. Maybe it may have happened in 2004, 2005, but it was something. Spencer's chimed in. Arizona is not only hot half the year, but has lots of occupied handicap parking spaces. Spencer, I totally underestimated the handicap parking spaces in Arizona.
That's right. It's old people country. They may use them, Yeah,
they probably do use them. Sorry, Arizona. Great point, Spencer, for bringing that up there about that. But yeah, when you said 100 degrees at night, I remember that the first time I had an airplane. I can't remember why, but they stopped in Arizona. It was just, and we never got off the plane. But I remember the flight attendant was saying, the temperature here is 100 degrees. It was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was like, wow, are you kidding me? And I was, this was probably 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I'll never forget that. More power to Spencer and my sister-in-law and my nephew for being able to live out in that kind of stuff. People do adapt and they do like it, but for me, I got there's if you want to go and exercise outside, you've got to do it early, because you can't do it during the middle of the day. And you might do it maybe late in the evening, possibly when the sun goes down and things cool off a little bit. But still, I'm still talking about going later into the evening, not even 8 o'clock, later than 8. So it's pretty tough out there. Yeah. Like that. I don't mind visiting Arizona, but that midday heat is a killer. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And every time you walk outside, it's right in your face.
Yeah, no, and then, there's, for those of us that are used to having or seeing green lawns and something like that, you really, you can't really do anything like that. You just basically have cactus and stone walls and rocks and swimming pools and pretty much a lot of concrete, which probably doesn't help the situation of heat. So anyway, all right, the New York City Democratic primary. So we talked about this last week because it was last week it took place, right? Yeah. So here we are, just a week later, just over a week later, and we don't know who won, and then they had this little bit of a hiccup, which is that they forgot to remove the test votes in the system, and Eric Adams, who was expected to win, noticed that there were like 150,000 more votes in the system than had theoretically voted for by Tuesday evening. So then they realized they had to remove test votes. I don't know. I mean, we talked a little bit about ranked choice voting last week. I mean, is this a good use of ranked choice voting, a bad use of ranked choice voting? Is the jury still out? And who's going to win?
I think he will still eventually win, from what I've been able to piece together about all this. I don't think this is blamable too much on ranked choice voting. I think it is, this is the quality of, of election administration we're getting in this country, right? And, you don't know these things. And, the elections all over this country are being run by people who, are they honest about it? Who even knows, right? Because because of massive, widespread incompetence. I mean, I think this is just, in New York City, obviously, on a variety of fronts, doesn't have its act together right now. It's probably as vulnerable to, electoral skullduggery as it's ever been, as well as, all kinds of other corruption, because, there doesn't really seem to be anyone in charge. Cops don't seem to matter there anymore. People break the law willy-nilly. So, I don't know. I think Adams will eventually be the nominee. But I hope that people will look at this and see, this is 2021. We used to be able to know who won elections the next day. It may take all night. It's gone late into the night before. But for the most part, you woke up the next morning knowing who your winner was. And almost none of these things are like that anymore, right? And why is it being teased out like that? Why is it go on for weeks and weeks? It's not so that the results can get more honest and accurate. I can tell you that, right? It's so skullduggery can occur. So, there's someone introduced a bill, I believe, in Congress, probably won't get anywhere, that says, let's go back to having election day. And I think it was a conservative too, who said, whole day off. You don't have to go. You don't have to work that day, but you vote that day. You can't make it that day, you don't get to vote. That's your day, election day, not week, month, year, springtime, whatever. You vote on that day. And I'm for that. I think, and then we count them at the local place and report the numbers from the local place with both sides watching. I think then you can get to a result that even if we don't like it, we can accept it because it was done honestly. I think when you get to these central vote counting centers, I think that's where the corruption is introduced.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'll throw in a comment here. John Cunningham, he's one of your people, right?
He's one of my peeps.
Yeah. Come on down here and grab some of this humidity. Where's John living?
Shreveport, Louisiana. So he's, yeah. It's not a dry heat there.
We know all of that. Yeah, well, yeah, we know about humidity. Spencer knows about humidity. Yeah. Spencer's dreams. He's seen heat and humidity here, and he's seen heat in Arizona. So he's seen a lot of it. I think some people, everybody's different. Some people, they don't mind the heat as long as they don't have the humidity. But 117 is too hot. I'll take this. I'll take a heat and humidity here and just stay indoors when I have to.
Yeah.
I can still get around other parts of the day. But you're right about this. I think this is where we almost have to move now. I wasn't keen on the idea of turning election day into a day off initially, but but after the pandemic and after watching what's all the chicanery and all the fighting that's been going on between early voting, absentee voting, and everything else, all the problems that we've had, that I think that this is one way to solve. Once again, you just go back and say, this is election day, okay? Before you didn't get the day off, now you get the day off. What's your excuse to go and vote now if we give you the day off? There are places that provide transportation for you to get from a place to another place. The senior centers and all these other kinds of things. They can put mechanisms in place to get people who say, "But I can't get there." Well, we'll provide some kind of general, location where you can go to.
I'm not even for that. I think it's your job to get there. I don't think it's our job to drive people around.
If
parties can do that, the candidates can do that.
Right.
The government doesn't need to do that.
That's what happened. I mean, I remember Connie Morella. I mean, I think she was, I'm sure that she was largely responsible for. We had a senior citizen a place near our house in Silver Spring before, and they bust people over. But I think those were I think there were a lot of Democrats over there. I think there were still a lot of Connie supporters and things like that because of our constituent service. And I think a lot of politicians, make these arrangements, right? They make sure that if you don't have your own transportation at your residence, we will help get you there, especially if it's at a place where you got 30, 40 that are able-bodied enough to get and vote out to a place and do that. So, we'll see. But I mean, people aren't being disenfranchised, by that at all. And I keep telling people, the thing that really drives me crazy is just every time you see things about all of this kind of stuff, it's just that it's voter suppression, because that's the way they want to frame it. But it's not about voter suppression, which is the perfect segue. Well, we'll talk about go right into the Department of Justice suing Georgia, right, for the election law changes that they made. This is the Biden administration, trying to wade their way in here. But I think they're going to fail on this.
Yeah, I think what they went after it for is ridiculous. It's straight up viewpoint discrimination. We think what you do will hurt Democrats. Therefore, we're going to try to legally dismiss it. I think it gets laughed out of court. I went through reading the grounds for the lawsuit. It's laughable. I mean, they're not getting anywhere with this, and the courts who want to help them. I don't see where they get off even trying this. But it also shows you, Mitch McConnell did the country a solid when he refused to take up Garland's nomination. He wasn't going to make it anyway. But I mean, you kept it. This guy's a hack. He has no business on the Supreme Court. He's done nothing since becoming Attorney General but proved that he did not have the judgment to be on the court. So, and this is another example of that. There's no reason states make their own election laws. He knows that. He knows there's nothing in what Georgia did. I mean, a lot of states, Rhode Island, Colorado, others have more restrictive provisions in their voting laws than Georgia does, even with the new legislation. So, it's political, it's performative, it's unconstructive, and it's exceedingly weak in terms of legal argument.
Yeah, I see that. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't decide to try and go after other states, Republican-led states, that try to make any other changes as well, because it's just they're just targeting these guys without any real good legal reason behind it. On Garland, I just have to throw in here too is that your favorite Washington Post writer Jen Rubin, what was it last week? She was a big Garland supporter, and now she's turned against Garland because Garland won't go after Trump hard enough.
Yeah,
right.
It's always the first priority is going after Trump. In New York, right? They keep writing this thing. Cy Vance met with Trump organization people and said, "This is your last chance to convince us not to file charges." Like what? And so supposedly charges are forthcoming against members of the Trump organization. So what they're going to charge them with, it appears to be all they have is not reporting all of the value of some of their fringe benefits on their taxes. So it's going to be a tax. You skated on your taxes by not fully valuing whatever the fringe benefit was. It has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with the organization. It's just viewpoint discrimination. We've investigated all this stuff for so long. We got to charge somebody with something, or people are going to see us for the persecutors we are. Frauds.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. I mean, as you said, even about the New York thing. I mean, Adams is in the lead, but this woman Garcia, she came. She's now, I guess, a close second because of the ranked choice, and they're still going through this. But this is the problem with the voting system, as you allude to, is just that we're over a week past the primary, and they're still not sure who won the election yet. This is ridiculous.
They're saying July 17th. We won't know till July 17th.
Yeah,
third world country, banana republic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt the Democrats really, because they're probably, their registration, they're probably going to win. Whoever wins this will probably win in the fall, in all likelihood. But it does delay their opportunity to say I am the nominee and get some other things going along the way. But yeah,
the other nominee is well known, right? He's not right.
Right. Yeah, Sliwa is well known.
Yeah, so losing time, trying to define him as something that we can't do, it could make a difference. It could be a problem for him.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about Sliwa. I mean, is that he's not afraid to fight, right? So I mean, I think he'll get into it with whoever wins the nomination for the Democrats. He will not shirk. So that could be interesting. Yeah. Could make it a much more interesting race in the long run.
It's hard to paint him as a typical Republican suit either, too.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't fit any of the normal boxes. So.
Right. I mean, he came to prominence because of the guardian angels in New York and trying to clean up things and stuff like that. So yeah, he doesn't. He was not a politician. Never really wanted to be a politician. He was just trying to do some good and clean up the crime mess in New York
streets, which is what the people seem to want now. New York's had enough. I wouldn't count him out at all. I mean, I think the winning candidate of this is going to be the one who comes out who makes the best argument on law and order, and not sending social workers and defunding and letting people do what they want, but hey, we're going to enforce laws and put bad guys in jail.
Right.
That's going to come back being popular again with a vengeance. You know why? Because it works. People who are willing to be violent, you got to put them behind bars and you got to keep them there.
Yeah, the whole defunding thing has not really worked out very well for the Democrats. I mean, I saw something where I guess that some Democrats are now starting to blame the Republicans.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Here's why they're blaming them, though. I want people to understand this. Okay, they're saying you did not vote for Biden's, liberal wish list grab bag of stuff. Okay, therefore, you're the ones defunding the police. First of all, the amount Congress should be spending on supporting local law enforcement is zero. Right? That's not a federal government function. Let communities decide this for themselves. Minneapolis, Chicago, those places obviously have a different approach than. Birmingham and, Jacksonville, whatever. And all those communities ought to be able to implement the approach to law enforcement they want. What's happening is the leftist approach to law enforcement is being tried out and auditioned in cities across the country. And people are finding that it does not work very well. One of the funniest things about it, though, you see these lists of the murder rate increases, and in Minneapolis it's 270%, and 3 or 4 others it's over 200%. Down at the bottom of the list is Chicago, where it's only 5%. The mayor even claimed to a reporter yesterday that the murder and firearms crimes rates are going down in Chicago. She claimed they are decreasing. But what happens is it's not going up all that much in Chicago because it was already at, extremely high levels, right? It's, there's only so many people in Chicago who are interested in shooting people, and all of them are getting out and getting their shoot on, so it's, you can't go up too much more. So, something's got to give. People are not going to sit there and cower in their homes out of fear of crime in the streets. That's something they expect government to do something about.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what these liberals were thinking. That's like, oh well, we have to take away money from the police force, and we're gonna send in all these social workers and all these other things, and it'll work out better. I mean, there was somebody, was it Corey Bush or someone like that said that calling 911 is a sentence. I mean, it's just sheer lunacy, to say these things. In the meantime, when they reduced the funding to police departments, crime has spiked, incredibly high. And he's like, well, exactly what did you think was going to happen? I mean, if you reduce the police presence and resources, what do you think? You think criminals are just going to say, oh, yeah, we'll just wait?
Yeah, police were not causing crime. This just in. Yeah. They were not causing the crime, right? So removing the police will not reduce the crime. They were keeping the crime to a manageable level. You want to pull them out, you're saying the restraint should be shown by the criminals, right? The criminals are not known for restraint. That's how they got to be criminals.
Yeah.
Right.
Newsflash.
Yeah.
All right. We need to talk about President Biden a little bit more. There was this bipartisan infrastructure agreement, at least a framework for it, announced. And then Biden seemed to undercut it almost immediately by saying, well, he wasn't going to sign off on that, but unless they were going to agree to put this other portion into reconciliation, which basically bypasses Republicans, and everything. I wasn't even sure he'd get that through reconciliation to begin with.
I don't either.
So that made the Republicans mad that they thought they'd worked on this deal. And then Biden kind of makes a statement for which he's tried to walk back, but I don't know if the damage hasn't already been done. And then he goes out and he's out giving this talk or whatever. And he goes into that weird thing where he approaches the microphone and he's talking whispers, but he's yelling, and everybody's like,
$1.6 trillion.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck is that? It's almost like this isn't that creepy thing going on there. What is the president of the United States doing, acting like this? I don't get it.
Well, I have a theory on that. First of all, on the infrastructure package, he said, we got a deal. We're going to move forward. And then it was like, the leftists got mad at him and said, we're not passing. You're not playing on this unless you guarantee us our leftist wish list, our human capital infrastructure bill goes through, right? Which is what, $2.5 trillion for, liberal wish list stuff, right? Child care, expanding Medicare again, and all this kind of stuff. So, so now the leftists, stormed the White House yesterday. A lot of conservatives were, hey, that looks kind of like an insurrection, to demand that this package with all these environment green measures and electric charging stations and mass transit and all this goes through. It's not just highways and bridges and so forth. They're like, hey, that doesn't move the country forward anymore, blah, blah, blah. But, the fact of the business is that's exactly what the country needs. He's also had to go through a lot of things over the fact that, he started out asking for about $2.5 trillion here, 2.2 trillion or whatever. And it's down to 570 billion. Right, is what was in this so-called compromise package, because it's down to highway, road building, bridge building, repairing, broken waterworks, actual infrastructure, actual Americans need. And so, it turns out it could be done for a lot less. And then part of the thing that got Republicans to the table on it was that the price tag did come down to something manageable that they could go bring to their voters. So now it's like, oh, it can't pass until this other thing passes, and Pelosi says she's not going to take it up until the other bill is signed. Biden says, hey, wait, so I will sign the one I agreed to with the Republicans without seeing the other. So he goes back and forth, and, he's whispering to let us know that it's all okay while all this is going on. But the fact of the business is he has gotten rolled twice in this and is on the way to getting rolled a third time by his own people. So, you know, this, you know, when you have an administration this inept, you got to expect that these things are going to go back and forth a few times.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, this whole leaning to the microphone thing and doing this is like, what does he think he's really accomplishing? Every time he does this.
So my theory on that is this. He is, you know, for one thing, I don't know if you saw this, but like Kamala's operation refers to Biden's operation as the Titanic. So take from that what you will. Okay. But my thing is, like, he feels in jail, right? He feels like, you know, he's told who to call on and when to call on him. He's told, you know, disciplined, remonstrated when he tries to have impromptu conversations with the press or anyone else. You know, he's sort of guided along physically. You know, they literally take his arm and sort of lead him around. And I think he wants to break out of that. And I think that he's, you know, he's sort of fighting back against all the, you know, channeling him and his time, which was something that Obama went through too. You know, Obama, they were afraid to let him ever say a word on his own either. So they kind of kept him in little boxes and really, you know, parsimoniously doled out the public comments, right? And so these guys are even worse because they realize, you know, there's really no telling what Biden will say. I mean, Obama said things, you know, that reflected that he didn't know about something, right? He didn't have sufficient knowledge to comment. But, you know, Biden says things that make you question whether he is sentient, right? Which is, you know, that's a little more serious situation. So I think this is him lashing out at it. He's like, I'm saying things they will listen to in a weird way. And, you know, the people come up and say, that's kind of weird, Joe. You shouldn't do it. They can't really stop him from doing it. He's at the mic. He's supposed to be at the mic. So he gets his shot in there and they can't really do anything about it. That's my theory, is that's sort of his little private rebellion against all the shackles that are put on him.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, you're the president of the United States and you do this. I mean, it's one thing, you know, if you're really doing this in a small group setting, kind of in an off, you know, in an off the record thing or whatever, but it just seems like you're trying to do something that doesn't fit the moment. You know, it doesn't really work how he's trying to do this whole thing. So I don't know. This is, you know, we're 5 months in. This is still the tip of the iceberg, I think, we're going to see from this administration. John has chimed back in here about what we're talking about, these bills and everything. How cool would it be if we could get clean bills without anything in them, except what their original intentions were? Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, that'd be nice, but I don't know. I think you're dreaming.
Yeah. I mean, you know, those other things are levers that get the stuff passed, right?
Right.
But you know, he has a point. Like, we're way off target with this infrastructure bill. You know, childcare is not infrastructure. You can say it is, but it's not, right? It's not. You know, childcare is its own debate. Let's have that debate, but it ain't infrastructure.
So Bob has joined us. He's late because he had a supporter Zoom update call with Representative Gonzalez of Texas. So
okay,
as you might
who was
imagine,
Bob went to his school.
Okay, and
yeah,
he says, yeah, the sentiments on mumbles and giggles in that crowd, right in line with mine. So
yeah,
we were wondering what happened to you. It's better late than never, Bob, to join us, right?
Keeping Representative Gonzalez on the right track. That's
right. That's right. All right. You mentioned Kamala Harris. I'm gonna jump to that just because she finally went to the border, but she chose El Paso. President Trump is going to be with Governor Abbott and I guess some other people, and they're going to McAllen, Texas, which was much more of a hot spot. I mean, El Paso was more of a kind of a photo op. Nothing really happened. She's not
where the sector office is. It's know, that's a Democrat thing to do. It's like, we're not really going to the problem. We're going to see the government people there. And we'll just ask the government people there what they think. And we'll just go on that. Right. Because the government people are the only ones that know what's going on anyway. I mean, that's what that is. That's why she went there. You know, I got the full picture. I talked to the officials. Okay. Well, did you look in the dormitories? Well, I mean, that's not in El Paso. It's not. All right. They're not. But El Paso sector office controls the Rio Grande border all the way down to McAllen and a lot of the border in New Mexico, southern New Mexico. So it's a big sector and a lot of the stuff comes through there. And, you know, and that's what she did.
Was it Representative or somebody complained though about that she wasn't going into the right place.
Exactly. And Cuellar's a Democrat, and
Yeah.
he said, he's like, this is a big problem. And you guys, you're not helping me, talk to my people about it because you look indifferent to it and you look high-handed about it and you don't even know where the problem is, right? The people in Texas know that, El Paso is, El Paso is, I don't know if you've been to El Paso, but you can literally, like I-10, you can look across to the left side of the road if you're going west and see into Mexico. I mean, Juarez is right there. It's like, Washington and Arlington, right? You just cross the river and there it is. And, so it's not, they understand this, like that's, what happens in El Paso / Juarez is what it is. But the problems that we're addressing with immigration and people surrendering and trying to get their kids in and coyotes and all that is not what happens in El Paso, right? What happens in El Paso is just a city, right? Just a city that straddles a national border.
Right. All right. We're down to less than 2 minutes. Go.
There was something on here that I wanted to get to. Let's see what's on here. I feel bad for North Carolina State. It was kicked out of the College World Series over COVID. I think we've we've reached some pretty ridiculous lengths in what we're doing over this, especially considering, the people in contact with them are healthy 20-somethings, who are not, just about the least likely people to have any serious health effects of COVID, right? Well-conditioned athletes in their high teens or low 20s are about as safe from having more harm from COVID. But it's like, the NCAA is like programmed to see how many people can kick out of things, and people don't understand NC State, that's a school in a tough area, right? Basketball, it's hard to recruit against Duke, North Carolina, etc. Football, it's hard to recruit against Clemson and the SEC, etc. North Carolina has not won a conference championship in football, basketball, or baseball since 1992. So it's a hard place to win. So you finally get there and win and get yourself to the College World Series and, get kicked out over something like that. That's another example of the arrogance of the NCAA running amok.
Yeah, I mean, that was a travesty. I mean, the NC State was they were playing well. They weren't expected to get that far, right?
Right.
Vandy's the defending champ and everything, and I thought, man, if they win, I mean, is that did they really win the way they should have won? Because their opponent, who was playing well, got taken out by the NCAA. I mean, NC State they were down a bunch of people, but they were willing to play. They were willing to go and field the team and play, just shorthanded, whatever. Yeah. And it's really bad. And I have lost for teams like schools like NC State and things like that. That some of the arch rivals of Maryland when Maryland was in the ACC. But I think this is absolutely wrong on the part of the NCAA. But once again, does it surprise either one of us? No, not in the least.
That's really an organization that's leaderless and adrift, and something ought to be done about it.
Yeah. All right, we've reached the end of the show. Thank you once again for joining us. Please, as always, stay safe, stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Also, God bless America. Have a great week. This is July 4th. Remember our country. Remember the Declaration of Independence. A lot of things to celebrate. Matter of fact, I'll throw in one thing I saw in the news. I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw a scroll that said that Pabst Blue Ribbon or something like that is putting out a 1,776 case of beer.
You know what? I'm not a big PBR guy, but I might have to get me one.
I mean, can you? I mean, 1,776 cans of beer in a case. That is mind-boggling. But anyway,
can you pick up the other end of this, buddy?
Yeah, really. I got to pull a truck up to pull this thing out of here.
That's right.
Amazing. All right. On that funny, whatever, crazy note, have a great time, everyone. Enjoy your long weekend. Matter of fact, Brian, we're going to have to do the show on Tuesday at 10 if we can.
Okay.
All right.
No, we'll have to talk. That's about
okay. We will discuss offline. All right. We'll find Tuesday, some other day, some other time. All right. See you then. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.